Not sure how far we'll get tonight because it's a two-character shot, but we'll get as far as we can. Hi, everybody. I hope everything's going well. Got my spritzer here in my vintage Captain Marvel glass. Shazam, I'm sorry. Shazam, that's what they call him these days. I did my layout the other day and I transferred it over. I don't have the layout in front of me. It was here. It's just on a piece of computer paper. And I put it on this the other day. This is a long overdue commission for a couple friends of mine who are regulars supporting me and visiting us on the live stream. I really just did a rough layout, and right now I'm just getting a little bit more information down before I start inking. I wasn't sure if I wanted to go with the classic Spidey or the black costume, but we'll go with the classic Spidey because it's usually what the people want to see. The only thing with the regular Spidey costume is that because of all the little lines, um, it's easier to hide bad drawing. And I know when I do that, that's all I see. All I see are all the little webbing lines distracting from the crappy drawing. Because with Spider-Man, you want to get a certain energy to it and movement and all that jazz. I never draw Iron Man for fun. I'm not a big Iron Man fan. I'm not a big fan of his comic books. I never have been really, and I've never pretended to be. And I've tried. I've read, I read Demon in a Bottle. I read, much of the Michelinie run with whether it was Bob Layton or John Romita Jr. or whomever. Oh, thanks. Yeah. Hey, Desiree. Thanks, Joe. Yeah, Spidey's got to be doing something. I was talking at a middle school, and I said, the worst thing that you can do in one of these comics is be boring. So I at least try to make it interesting. My buddy Jay is a huge Spider-Man nut, so he'll pop on and tell me if I'm drawing him wrong too, in a good way, like another artist trust him more. Problem I have is I got people who actually drew Spider-Man that might pop in, like Saint Pierre or Nate or Ray Height or my buddy Pat. Hey, I mean, I think there should be comics for everybody. Doesn't mean all comics should be for every person though. It was just I don't know something about Tony Stark where it was just like he's a guy that made weapons for people and he was like a billionaire and he's another guy that like can solve all these world problems with his money and he just decides to make it about himself and being a superhero. I don't know. Never clicked with me. Just I think the movie version is more compelling than a lot of the comics that I read. I think they did a better job of making him, I think someone you could root for, and large credit goes to the actor, Robert Downey Jr., who I liked his films going all the way back to when he was first in a movie called Chaplin, I don't know if anybody on the stream has seen that movie, but it's a really excellent, like, yes, it's like a gigantic, big budget biopic, and I know that those can be like a drag to get through sometimes, but his performance in it, and Dan Aykroyd shows up in it, and a young Mila Jovovich. It's a terrific cast, and it's a terrific movie. It's true, and I don't mind that all the time, but I and with Batman, there's like so much like I I was working on a piece the other day, and I was talking about this with Camille, and I was talking about how, the Batman and Batman characters that I like, I don't find the Joker that rolls out of bed and just looks schlubby and just likes to blow things up uh, as the scarier villain. To me, the scarier villain is the one who gets up, does his hair, wants to look great, has a plan. Like there's the theatrics of it, like make it way scarier to me and more compelling for a comic book. But I know the gritty realism and the tactician is more, what folks have been into for a while. I find the villain who, the scene in the Daredevil show where Fisk is sitting in the hospital while that guy is slowly dying and choking on his own blood, and he's eating a steak. Like that's the villainy that I find entertaining in a comic book, where it's just like it's theatrical and kind of absurd. You know, the guy who just, you know. uh, Oh, I saw him in Weird Science. I feel like in Chaplin, like his that was where you saw like he was more than just, the goofy guy, from that from Weird Science. And also in Wonder Boys, based on the book by the terrific author Michael Chabon. I like his books very much. I've read a bunch of his stuff over the years, whether it was Cavalier and Clay or the Yiddish Policemen's Union. Yeah, he's just written so many good books. Right now, I'm reading Asimov, Pebble in the Sky. I found a $2 paperback at the bookstore. I said, you know what? Here's one I haven't read. I'll give this a read. Oh, thanks, Ray. We'll see if we can land the plane. Like that's always the question with these like action poses, is if they look human at the end, or if they just look like, you know, garbled geometry cobbled together. There's like little places in the joints where all I see is when I mess it up, like right here on the thumb, also the knees. Like I spend a lot of time. If you look at my sketchbook, there's like a ton of drawings of just like knee bones and the muscles under the knees. And my knees are kind of messed up from sports over the years, so I'll actually use my knees as reference for some of the like the goons and stuff who have. It's okay for like the villain or the goon to have like jacked up baseball catcher knees. I only caught for a few years, and it still messed up my knees. Not as bad as other people, though. We're gonna have like his little rocket boosters, right here, and he's like flying down and then up from off camera, so you'll see like the trail of the rocket as if he just swooped up, and Spidey is web slinging along. I thought about putting a building in here, but then I was like, that's so much more drawing. I love you guys, but man, I wanted it to be kind of fun. No, you're right. There should be one for scale. Like it should be, and where it should be is right here. It should be right here. And you know, if there was a way to do it where it would need to come back to probably about here, and then there'd be another one up here, and then that would frame it, and then it would give you the motion that they're coming forward. So, well, let's see where it goes. If we add the building, we're never getting it done tonight. That's the other thing we're going to run into. But for the actual piece, like for what's best for the piece and the motion, would be to have a grid defining the depth. And this is something that Pat Broderick is brilliant at when he does superheroes flying through cities and stuff. He will show you both scale and motion with his composition and without having any at all tangents, which is just super skillful. And he goes for it. He'll have like all the windows rendered from here out. But hey, if I'm getting called out, I might have to put the building in. Don't worry, guys. I don't. When I go nuts on a commission or something, I don't try to charge extra or anything. I saw some stuff on that commissions thing where people would like draw extra stuff and expect to be paid more, like beyond what they were, promised. I actually just did a giant stack of sketch covers, and I went crazy on some of them, and not charging an extra dime. It's just because I like doing them, and it was on my own volition. Would clouds work? See, that's a good question. I don't know if they would in this instance because with this energy and the trail that we want to show, we want that high contrast. And what I would probably, well, maybe, yeah, I don't know. We got to think. We're going to think on it as I'm trying to fix the anatomy here and rough in where the costume is. I like doing a more graphical Spider-Man face where like the mask doesn't necessarily line up with, you don't see his ears sticking out. Like if this were actually like a really thin mask over somebody's face, you would see bumps where the ears are. You'd see all that kind of stuff. But I like just going with like a graphical round mask. One thing I learned the hard way, as far as the mask goes, don't do too many lines for the webbing. I know that that's hard because like you always want to be like, oh, some more detail will look great. Now for Spider-Man, fewer lines on the mask specifically. I'm sorry, I bumped the camera. So, got to move that thing. One of the arms was like right in my face. I started watching the show Spaced, the Nick Frost, Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg show. Came out about 20 years ago at this point, but I saw it for free on Tubi. So got that, and then I also saw there's a John Carpenter movie I haven't seen called Dark Star on there, and it's one that I've been meaning to see. I guess one of the screenwriters from the original Alien co-wrote and stars in it. I don't know. Catching up on some stuff. They're always entertaining. I mean, I love the Cornetto trilogy. Yes, Dan O'Bannon. You know your stuff, Desiree. That's for darn sure. Yeah, it's like the one John Carpenter movie I haven't seen. It's like, well, maybe we'll throw that on after the stream. Hey, Jonathan. Oh, okay. Yeah, no sketch cover tonight. I have trouble fitting more than one full figure on a sketch cover. Some people make that stuff look easy. It is not. I did not know that. Did not know it was his first feature. All right, we got a big light source right here. So, like, I tend to draw Spidey these days wearing what is basically a black. I know in a lot of cases it's drawn blue, but I usually draw most of his body in like a black. But there will be a hard light here. It shrinks as it goes back. Oh, good. I'm glad he did the music. I look. I like his music. He was going to do a concert in Boston. Then the pandemic hit. I was hoping to go, but he's also one of the people I keep telling the folks over at like Rhode Island Comic Con they need to get John Carpenter as a guest some year. Yeah, I think you're right, Jonathan. And he would know. He would know. I honestly think of, like, when I think of the blue, I think of the Ralph Bakshi cartoon. Um, I don't know if that's when it shifted, but when I think of it, that's what I think of. I usually don't, Spider-Man, I have a number of Spider-Man comic books, but I actually don't think I actually own any Spider-Man original artwork. Um, hey Jay, there's the Spider-Man expert. That's the man we've been waiting for. Always with the robots. You're just looking out for me. I get it. I get it. Yeah, because there's a Ramita one that's all blue. Maybe the Electric Company was that? No, that was after. That was after the Bakshi one. Just trying to make sure I have them going the right way. Jay is the expert. I defer to Jay for all Spider-Man questions, general commentary, ramblings. Maybe Jay would know when you are the Super Transformers fan. That's true. I've actually found a middle ground with drawing robots. Don't fall out of your seat yet. Um, I've come to accept that there is an organic way to draw robots. Now, that's not a look that some people like, but that's the one that I'm most capable of and comfortable with. But Jay, do you know when they switched from black Spidey on the sides here, like his the parts of his costume, um, went from being black to blue, like when it became red and blue? Was it the Bakshi cartoon? He would know. Goofy old robots, that I can do. Yes. If you would like a silly robot, I am capable of silly robots. And see, when I draw webbing, because I'm inking it, I just have to indicate where the little spaghetti bits are, because I can draw the outline. See, this is where digital really helps, because if I were drawing it digitally, I actually have a brush that I can use that just is a white line and has two little outlines. But you would know, Jay, when they switched it to being blue and red instead of primarily blue and red instead of black. I thought it was maybe the Bakshi cartoon because that's the earliest I remember it, but it could have been before. Could have been like one of the annuals or something, or maybe when he guest starred with the Fantastic Four. I don't know. I did just finish. You mentioned Robbie the Robot. I did finish the new Lost in Space, which I liked quite a bit. I actually thought it was very fun. Like it's not trying to reinvent science fiction. It's just a fun adventure. 93-ish. No, it was way before that, Jay. The switching to the blue. Because he definitely had it in like Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Because the Bakshi cartoon came out in '67. Pardon me. Diving into the Kennedy archives. I expect there to be a prestige label from CGC for comics from the Kennedy archive, even though Jay would never sell his comic books. Um, it'll be after his death, and his sister is selling his collection, the Kennedy collection. It already sounds prestigious. All right, if we got a big light source here, there's going to be some shadow here, some nice line work here. I actually think we need to black out most of that. Many secret doors, and yeah. Okay, if there's a big light source here, there's going to be a hard rim light on both sides there. Yes, Nicolas Cage does have to help you find it. Except instead of on the back of the Declaration of Independence, it's on the back of a donkey menu or a diner in Southeast paper menu from like the 70s that's been closed for like 40 years. The Boston equivalent of searching of National Treasure. I think that is the case for this. One of the clues will be under the Red Auerbach statue. Heavy light this way. Right now, I'm just getting the gist of where, like, the darkest areas are going to be based on our light source. All the clothes lead to Eastie. Yes. Yep. Yep. All right, we got to decide on this background because if I got to draw buildings, this is going to take forever. I think we're gonna forego the buildings and just have some fun. Because if I do buildings, you're gonna watch me grid out a background, and that's gonna take probably the rest of the entire stream just to grid out the background. So let's use our noodles a little bit here. All right, we've got energy coming this way. We've got webs coming this way. What's a way to create forward motion? We need a large object followed by smaller objects. So if we create, I want high contrast with this here. So what if? Could we do just negative space? Could we do that? Maybe. Maybe we could get away with that. But if we did that, it needs to end here. We need it to come here, go up this way. The hand needs to break the plane. Fix that because we want to show the depth. All right. We're working in pencil right now. We're just going to do a quick experiment to see if we can fudge it. One of the clues takes him out to Worcester, and the clue in Worcester just says, "Go back to Boston." Why are you in Worcester? My trusty ruler, just to get our. Let's see if we can fake it a little bit and find a happy medium. All right, our vanishing point is going to be all the way over here. And so that the paper doesn't slide around. This tape is great. This is the satin finish tape, and it isn't quite as sticky. It's a purple lip, but that way I can put this down and then peel it off. Yes, yes. Now you're getting into the swing of things, Jonathan. The clues that lead you around the National Treasure of Boston to the Kennedy Collection. Oh, the John F. Kennedy Collection? No, the J. Kennedy Collection. See how far off my eyeballing that vanishing point was? Jesus. Terrible. Oh, thanks, Rob. Rob's Art. Thanks for popping in. to make a tangent, so let's actually bring it up a little bit. Let's go up to here. All right, well, we already started. We might as well do this thing. We're going to do this side, and then we move it over, and then we switch vanishing points, because I can only do one vanishing point on this setup. What we'll do is we'll measure this out. 3/4 of an inch. That way we got basically whatever grid we need. And then hopefully we'll at least get one of the figures inked. But once you see the grid in place, you'll see what I'm saying as far as creating that sense of motion. There's this grounding that occurs when you see the geometry, because anybody that knows what a grid is, and it really helps illustrate the distance. Once you see it, you'll see what I'm talking about. What's the difference between drawing buildings and robots? The difference between drawing buildings and robots is that buildings you do have to generally find reference for, because people know when they're looking at a faked building. You know. I'll save all the background inking for off camera once I get it gridded in, and you can see where it's going. Gridding backgrounds, so fun. This is where I understand why people switch to going full digital, because like the tools that are still drawing tools, not using three-dimensional shapes, just make this so much faster. All this grid stuff is already in the computer, and then you just start drawing windows on top of it. Right here. Right now, we're really just cutting shapes into the background. And we're trying to not create tangents. Like those are the two goals. And what we have here is if I continue this line over to here, it's going to create a tangent. So what we'll do is we will end this building before the end of Iron Man's leg here. That'll be the end of that one. Okay. I remember one time I was getting a portfolio review in New York, and I'm sure I've told this story before, but I was told by an editor, like, these don't look like real buildings. And then the next year, I saw the same editor, and I worked my butt off on drawing buildings and referencing. And I actually had one page where I just said, like, screw it, I'm just going to trace it. And I traced a good chunk of New York. And he was like, these don't look like real buildings. And then I like told them that they were traced from a photograph. And then he just said, "You're not supposed to disagree with an editor during a portfolio review." There's a point where you know a company's not going to hire you, so it's like, hey, I did what you asked, and you still wanted to kick me, so here's the truth. Now, see, this is important for the grid. Remember when I said I was creating that sense of motion coming forward as these lines expand and come out and get larger? That's where the organic shapes passing in front of it create that motion. No, I understand it's supposed to be colored, Ryan. I have to draw it first, and then I color it after. I think if you saw that painting, that digital painting of the dwarf that I did, I think of contrast a lot. Like that is the basis for structure, and that's what I'm thinking about first. Even for a color piece, like when I used to do oil painting pretty regularly, I would start with just earth tones, raw umber, burnt sienna, um, maybe a little bit of cadmium yellow, but I started with a monochromatic piece always. Because if it looks bad in one color, you're just gonna muddy it up with a lot of color. And that's just what some artists actually do. And they will just make it busy. Oh no, no, no. The background, what'll end up happening with the background is you'll see when I do the sponge for the ink, because I'm going to treat this as a color drawing and not a painting. Um, when I do the sponge and stuff like that, there will be some heavy black. And then this space here that's behind the buildings, I'm probably like, I like the idea of having a lot of contrast. So I'm debating on whether or not to have a completely blacked out sky. But here, let's get our other, we have to keep our horizon line. Oh, no worries, man. I'm happy to explain my random process. Um, I'm just filling in some lines because I need to know where the last line is here. I think that's it right there. And then this ends here. And all right, let's get our vanishing point over here. Let's put it as far over here as we can. Oh, thanks very much. It's for my good pals Ryan and Jess, so I want it to be a good one. And they've been very patient and kind and supportive, so I'd like to repay that. I even put it on bigger paper for them. All right, now we get the rest of our grid. Yeah, the difference between a colored drawing and a painting is line. Yes, paintings can use line, but it can't use line to define all the shapes. It has to use form. At least that's the definition that was explained to me when I was being trained to paint. Hey, it could have. Now, see, now you make me wish I should have put like Doctor Octopus like far off with his tentacles coming at him. That would have been a good idea. Because I would actually rather throw in a bonus character than do a cityscape. I'm not gonna finish the cityscape on the stream. I'm just getting the grid in there so that you can see what I was saying, and then I'll go back to inking I'll jump to inking the figures. That way, when I do my next fancy time lapse video, you can actually see something from the finished product. That last one I did for Joe's picture that I did for him, I licensed that music from a British musician who had wonderfully organized music and was easy to talk to and was very organized with their licensing stuff. I was really impressed. I was very impressed. And I paid for the license because I thought I dug the music and I was like, hey, support artists, man. That would be a good cover. And as far as the NEC pitch updates, they asked for some revisions to the pitch, and then Jeff and I sent those, and we're waiting to hear back. They didn't give us a F off and die, which was nice. All right, I gotta get some more lines in here. Now this is gonna get hard. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna rely on the boot thrusters to mostly blank this out. So I just need to find the end point here so that I can come over here and connect. And I know this you're like, why are we watching this? This is so boring. But on the final piece, I promise, like the buildings will give it motion. And that's very important in comics. I hope so too. We're really, really, really like we love this story, and it's one that I did a random sketch just one night, and I was like, Jeff, this would be really fun, and then he wrote a really cool story around it, and yeah, I hope we get to do it. Okay, you can start to see with the grid what I was saying as far as the movement goes. Now that I've been thinking about it, I'm going to go with a heavy, heavy dose of Payne's Gray for the background so that we can get a really nice tonal bleed that goes from basically pure black to like a nice soft blue here, where when you have that blue in front of the red on Iron Man, it's really going to pop. The background is going to have to be all cool colors. So it's going to be blues, purples, greens, maybe, but really soft teals. And then it'll come forward with the only black I think I will use is the outlines for the buildings and then on the characters themselves. So let's dig in. Let's get cracking on some character inking. So we got Spidey flipping around and we got Iron Man. I guess we'll start with old Tony here. I watched oh, thank you, Jessica. I'm glad you're liking it so far. I'll try to land the plane here. I watched Larry Stroman draw an Iron Man in like 15 minutes, and it was just beautiful. I think the last time I drew an Iron Man was for one of my friends out in Ohio. He got an Iron Man in Thor Buster armor fighting Thor, which, I thought that was cool. One of the things I've really been thinking about more since I've been painting again is making sure things wrap around the forms better. And I admit that that was something I was getting lazy on, and it's something I see other artists are lazy on. You get basically these lines that don't break. Now, what I mean by that is that the lines, yes, they move, yes, they're on the paper, but like you see on this cheekbone, which is sort of like the edge of his face mask armor. Yeah, he does it in negative space. You're exactly right, Geeks and Drinks. He leaves the open space and just inks around it because he's a freaking master at it. Um, where this cheekbone is, instead of coming down, stopping, and then taking a hard left, you'll see it just sort of like, instead of going down and then over like that, I personally was going down and then just kind of like that. And the line just made it look mushy and made it look lazy. And that was me. I'm not projecting anyone else. That was 100% me. And what that does is it hides bad drawing. Because if everything has kind of a mushiness to it, it all matches. So like you get I was creating this like similar line and it wasn't making good drawing. This is the stuff that I think about when I'm just tearing my own work apart. Um, which I do. I do it regularly. I do it in my sketchbook. Yeah, I grew up with Larry's stuff on Alien Legion, and that was the first place I saw his work. And I don't know if it was, I think Carl Potts was maybe doing layouts too. I know Carl drew and he wrote. Um, I don't know if he was also doing layouts, but it was when Larry went to do other books like X Factor, and he was doing these awesome layouts that um, I just fell in love with the stuff. Jay, I think you need to start writing this stuff down so that um, if we have a slow day at a convention, we can just work on this Southie National Treasure. Or Goonies. It's kind of like the Goonies. I could think of Jay as more of a one-eyed Willie situation, a pirate with tons and tons of comics. Like here's another example where the jawbone comes down and the mask meets with the neck. I kept I kept trying to make it match the other side, and that is wrong. And look, I understand deadlines, timing, everything else, but I'm just being critical of my own work. And I do admit there's just sometimes nothing you can do about it. You just got to put down the best you can in the time you got. And Lord knows I've fallen victim to the "Can you get it to us tomorrow?" phone calls. Could I say no? I guess, but I don't get a lot of phone calls from a lot of different publishers. So Oh, thank you, Thomas. It's very nice of you to say. Because he's got all these tiny little lines, it's hard for me to switch to the brush. So what I will probably do is do a fair amount of pen work and then go back in with a brush and sure up the lines. Or maybe once I get done with the face, I can get some of the bigger shapes. Oh, thanks. Practice lots of hands. I draw lots and lots of hand studies in the sketchbooks. I think I should trade my sketchbooks for a house in the countryside like Bob Crumb did. I don't even know where that is, Jay. They will be once they're done. Doing spaghetti webbing, I wasn't going to pencil it super tight. I was going to pencil it just rough and then fill it in as we go. And I know people still call them McFarlane style, but I always think of them as the Michael Golden ones because he was the guy that used them, and then Art Adams did them, and was it Eric Larson even did a fill-in issue um, before McFarlane took over. I tell you, I think McFarlane does have like the universe. He has the longest running indie comic. I think he also has the record for most homage covers. Period from his work. Um, I just saw two more today that were both based on his Batman cover. this tape off. Yeah, I may not even get this done tomorrow with the background drawing. Hey, no worries, man. Good hanging out with you. Thanks for the laughs. Have a good night, man. I know work's been tough lately, so get some sleep. Oh, nice. Is it the Dodger game you got going on? Oh, nice. Yeah, such a good idea, not re-signing Mookie Betts for the Red Sox. Great idea. Awesome. If Mookie just went yard, that's just serendipitous. Oh, okay. He's still out. Yeah, I've been watching mostly minor league baseball because our local team wants to charge you an obscene amount of money to watch their games, and I just can't afford it. So I have my minor league baseball package. Him going to the Dodgers was a surprise too, just because I thought he was like Mr. Atlanta Braves, you know? Thought he'd be one of those guys that would like a modern Dale Murphy kinda situation where he'd retire as a Brave. Yeah, that was strange. The Red Sox ownership is confusing, and I know they just started, like, their own streaming service, but it was, like, crazy expensive. I was like, "Nope, can't do it." Yeah, it was something like that, Jonathan. It was like 30 bucks a month, which just for Nessun, like, it just boggles the mind. It's like they want to at that rate, they want to incentivize me calling my cable provider and adding the other channels to get Nessun also that way. Like, it's that expensive. I had someone ask me the other day, like, "How'd you get so fast?" I tell them I'm not that fast. I just always just doing this. Always working. Now you can see using the pen, it creates kind of a dead line. There's not a lot of variation in the line thickness. So like I said, when I finish Iron Man, I will go back in with a brush pen to give it some flourishes. At a convention, when people ask for Iron Man, more than once I've like just because I like drawing the Kirby design, I've drawn like the big clunky Iron Man in the big metal suit, and they were I would say they were mildly disappointed in the outcome. I don't know if the folks know this, but Andy Park, he drew X-Men and Tomb Raider and all sorts of stuff. He's been the lead designer doing all these Marvel suits for years. So like whether it's Iron Man, I know Adi Granov contributed drawings to the first movie, but Andy Park has been. I mean, he worked on like Ultra Force and stuff. He worked. I think he came up through the Extreme Studios, one of Rob Liefeld's guys. He's done very well for himself with the movies and done some amazing, amazing work. He's definitely helped define what the look of superhero movies is. You do have to specify the armor. I just like the big clunky one. I don't know. There's something about it with the little antennae on the side. I couldn't tell you which armor this is. You could mark 36,000. I don't know. I found some reference online and then I just made some tweaks here or there where I didn't like some of the design. And I wasn't lazy about it. I rendered the whole thing, and you know, it wasn't like I was just trying to do the clunky to have to draw less or something. Yep, exactly. And actually, from those old Iron Man comics, an artist who work I appreciated a lot more as I've gotten older is Don Heck. Um, I was not a big fan of his stuff because I pretty much only saw like his work he did at the end of his career that was always inked by someone who just didn't get his illustrative, like classic 60s, 70s men's magazine line work. Um, it only made sense to me when I saw him ink himself, and he inked himself in the Aquaman Action Comics backups, and it was all there. And I looked into his other work outside of comics, and I was like, my God, like he drew classic American magazine illustrations, and he was the stuff I saw him drawing, in Marvel Comics Presents or these other places where they would give older artists work. I was never like, oh, it's Don Heck. He was, like a house style guy. But once I saw like his own work and how he worked over his own stuff, it all clicked for me. And I was like, wow, this guy is really, really good. And he does a lot of drawing in the inking stage. Like what I'm doing right now is still drawing. This is not inking in the classic sense. And I think the inkers who like working over loose stuff, from what I gather, like the Klaus Jansons of the world, it's because they know how to draw and they like to draw. And this is still very much a drawing exercise that I'm doing right now rather than a mechanical process of just adding texture and line weight. All right, well, let's get our brush going a little bit. We'll just try to flourish it out a little. And the reason I'm having some darker lines on the north facing parts of Iron Man is because our major light source, remember, is the rocket boots down on this part. Hello, Coco Lopes. Sorry, I don't know the name, but welcome. Now, the one thing that's a little nerve-wracking at this point is that because this is a color piece, I can't use any whiteout. So I just got to be careful. Yeah, when you do the whiteout at this point, it will definitely um, bleed and make like gray marks and stuff. Like it does not handle water well. This is that gut moment on Bob Ross where he puts the big tree in the foreground, and he's like, "You ready? You gonna have the guts to do this?" And what this cast shadow is going to do is it's going to create this really nice break and making the breaks, which means where one object crosses another, look as intentional as impossible, as intentional as possible. Really helps it make it a very legible and readable piece. Helps keep the eye moving around, giving you depth and stuff. Hey, thanks, Jonathan. I'll catch you later, man. Thanks for popping in, hanging out. Now, I'm not going to do any halftone patterns like you'd see me do hatches and that kind of stuff on like just purely black and white pieces. But since this is going to be colored, we can leave some of that for the coloring. All right, well, I think we got Tony pretty well inked in there. To work on Pete here. We can just start right off with the brush. Let's get a swig of drink, let it dry for a second. Dries quickly, but we don't want to smudge it. The other thing, using more pen on Iron Man as opposed to on Spider Man, at least on his outlines, is that it'll create more depth by simply having thicker lines in the foreground. Um, Organic or web shooters? I don't know. I assume they're the web shooters. I guess could go either way. I suppose. Still the same sound effect, right? Did I watch the Bob's Burgers movie? No, I did not. I like Bob's Burgers and all, but I don't go to the movies very often anymore. Oh, if it's on Hulu, we'll probably watch it. But yeah, just don't get to the theater all that often. The theater. Well, I'm gonna do the rest of the webbing on Spidey's suit, but then we're gonna call it a night. I'll have to finish the rest of it off camera. Oh, you're welcome. No problem. Just tired. Been a long day. Some of this I'll have to fill in also after I finish the webbing. Oh, you got a pretty good idea of what it looked like so far. Let me see if we can use my fancy zoom, hand crank zoom. Of course, now we're out of focus. There we go. Here's where we're at so far. Thanks for hanging out with me tonight. I'll have to finish this off camera with all the webbing and the backgrounds and everything, but I'll post the time lapse after we get it done, and yeah, hope everybody has a good night, and I hope to see you next week. Take care, everybody.